Hello, how's everybody doing today? So, today I'm going to talk about loneliness. I get a lot of questions about this topic. Why does it happen? How do I get rid of it? All these different things. It's a very, very, very common problem amongst people. And I myself used to suffer from this. There's parts of my life where I had a lot of friends, and there's parts of my life that I had no friends. And, when you go through these different transitions in life, when I went from being an engineer and changing my life, I had to change all my different surroundings. And when I made that transition from being an engineer to chasing my passion, the old version of me didn't resonate with people anymore. And so, specifically, see, I'm picking some oranges here. So, that old version of me, people didn't resonate with anymore. And so when that happens, people see you as a certain version of yourself because they have an idea of who you are, who your identity is, based on what they see in front of you. And so for me, I changed that identity and things that started to manifest into my life that showed that new identity. And so a lot of people just didn't resonate with what I was talking about anymore because I started talking about spiritual stuff, energy work, and healing in a world that's ran through by logic. And so I lived in that world for so long, and it's all ran through logic. And not that there's anything wrong with logic. It's just that there is a balance to things. Let's go up this way. And so when we're out of balance, our life reflects that. And so first, that starts in that mental state. So if we use our mind too much over our heart, and vice versa. And so anyway, I digress. And so loneliness, I felt a great deal of that because I was like, I don't have any more people around me. Nobody supports in me. Nobody believes in me. Like, oh, how are you going to make money with breath work? How are you going to help people? What does it even look like? You're this engineer that's quote unquote successful. But I was super unhappy. And for me, I was just like, I don't know. I'm going to figure it out, but I'm just going to do it. I just know it's going to happen. Oh, those look really ripe there. I'll have to get those. But, yeah, so it was those specific things that I was dealing with at the time when I was making this transition. And it was super difficult because I didn't have anybody. Nobody was believing in me. And so I felt super lonely. And that loneliness started to creep in. Why did it start to creep in? Because I was looking externally for somebody to believe in me. I was looking externally for somebody to support me. Because I wasn't supporting myself internally. I wasn't there for myself internally. And so, because of that, it led to me feeling this sense of loneliness, this lack of connection. Because at that point in time, I wasn't really connected to myself. And so, when we're not connected to ourselves, we can't connect to anything around us. And so, when we're not giving a certain aspect that we're wanting, we'll start to want that from other people. And so I myself wasn't giving myself that trust, that belief that I could do it. I myself wasn't giving myself that support. And so I wanted somebody else to give it to me. There we go, I got the 3 oranges. And so because of that, I was expecting from my external environment for people to give me this love, support, and belief, because I wasn't giving myself those things. And so when somebody says they're lonely, I do believe that the humans need, connection and connection with others. But especially when you're making a transition in life, that transition becomes your full awareness, because I spent a majority of my time figuring out how I was going to make it work and actually putting the work behind it. Going to the places that I needed to go to learn, doing the different activities to better myself, to make it happen. And so during those times, I didn't really have time to think about being lonely, because it's really only a story. And it all comes from our childhood. The dynamic that we had with our parents. And so this is something that is very common. Because if we were codependent with our parents, or our parents didn't give us enough love, or any of those combinations of things, we'd look externally for that love and that sense of connection, because we either had a lack of it or too much. And so that can allow us to feel lonely, because we're looking externally for that gratification, for that stimulation from somebody else. And so when we do that, that causes us to feel lonely. Because if you spent all your time with somebody and then that person goes away and you're just left by yourself and you're just like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what to fill my time with. It's that kind of codependency. And that codependency really leads to that feeling of loneliness as well. Because we're looking to that authority figure, to that mom, that dad, that partner in a relationship to tell us what to do. And so a lot of the times that's the case. It's not for every single case, but a lot of the cases I've seen. And so what that leads to is us not feeling comfortable in what we do, because we're looking for somebody outside of us to give us that guidance. And so if we're not used to giving ourselves our own guidance and always asking for help, and not that asking for help is a bad thing, but if that's something that's consistently done and never ask your own intelligent awareness on what you should do, then yeah, you're gonna feel this loneliness, because you're used to having that external stimuli to say, yes, this is a good thing, Austin. Yes, I believe in you, or yes, I support you. And so when that goes away and you no longer have that, it's something that's super difficult, because we don't have any longer that stimuli to tell us that they believe in us, or they support us, or they're there for us, or they're there to connect with us. And so when we don't have those feelings of connections and all those different things, that means we don't have that connection within ourselves. And so how did I get rid of loneliness? It was connecting to myself. Because it's just a story like anything else. You know, there's a difference between wanting human connection because you want to connect with somebody, but then there's a difference between I'm connecting with somebody out of the obligation because I feel lonely, which is very different. And that's something I started to feel the difference between, because this is something I've healed from. And so when I was in Peru in the mountains by myself for like 100 days, I started to yearn for that connection. You know, I didn't feel lonely, but I just knew that I wanted to share certain experiences that I had with certain people. And that's perfectly fine. Because as humans, we're social creatures. And so there's nothing wrong with that. So, but the thing is differentiating, okay, why do I want to connect with people? Is it because I feel lonely? Or is it because I genuinely want to connect with other people? Because if you feel lonely and you're just like, okay, I want to connect with other people because I feel lonely, that's never going to solve it. Because you're going to go out and connect with people, and this happened to me, and you still feel lonely around a group of people. Because it's a conversation, it's a story that we have within ourselves. And so when we have that conversation, we believe that we need somebody else to sort of complete us, to make us feel better, not feel lonely. And that's a story. And so that loneliness is just based on our own thoughts and our own perceptions of what we need and our own expectations. But the way that I solved this was connecting deeper to myself and connecting truly with my own essence. And when I connected truly with my own essence, the loneliness went away. Because once you realize you're connected to yourself, you don't really need anything else. You know, it's a bonus if you have anything else, but it's not necessary. And so, for me, you know, I love connecting with people. But the key point is am I connecting with people out of loneliness or because I want to? And so that's something that's very important to make the distinction. Because if we're consistently connecting and trying to connect with people because we feel lonely, it's not really going to solve it. You know, you might feel good for a bit when you hang out with that person or whatnot, but that loneliness persists. And so it's this void within ourselves because we're not giving ourselves something, whether it's love, support, belief. Because we want to make contact with others, and a lot of times this is an unconscious belief because we believe that they can give us something that we can't give ourselves. And so for me, before I used to be a very codependent person. I would need that sort of external verification, gratification. And so when we're constantly looking to the external too much, we realize we're in an imbalance. And so the way to get back to that balance is through meditation, through breathing, through connecting with yourself, the believing in yourself, supporting yourself, and you know, you stop being lonely because you start to become your own supporter. your own best friend. And because of that, things just start to flow a lot better. A lot better. Let's see where this goes. And so the key of all this is really, once we're like trapped in our minds and we think, oh, I'm lonely, I feel this, yada, 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 you know, it's hard for us to make that connection because we're in that state of lack, that there's something missing. And so if that's how we make moves, it's going to be very difficult, because when we make moves from that place, the results are different, because you're making a move out of desperation, out of fear. And so when we make moves out of fear, the results of those actions aren't very good. And so the key is starting to notice why we're starting to do something, whether it's out of a place of love. Oh, I feel like I want to connect with these people because I want to add something to it. Or I want to connect with these people out of fear because I want to extract something from them. I want to get something that I'm not giving myself. And so that's the key, is starting to realize that. But then also starting to connect with yourself more, and that realizing this loneliness is just a story. Because we can be lonely in a room full of people, or we can be lonely in a room just by ourselves. And so it's that internal connection that we have with ourselves. So if we strengthen that connection internally, we will get rid of that sense of loneliness. And so that's the essence of this. So the next breathwork meditation that I'm going to put out is a self-love one. That's the first one of a series that I'm going to do. And that's really going to help with this, because it's tapping in with that self-love, that self-belief, our own internal connection. And so the more connected we are, the less lonely we feel. Even if we're by ourselves in the middle of the mountains and you haven't seen anybody in weeks, doesn't matter. The more we're connected with ourselves, the more present we are, the more we enjoy our experience in this world. Well, I hope everybody has a lovely day. Peace out and love to you guys.